Coming back to you live streaming, and today we're doing a show on how to make the greatest impact with your life. We are going to explore all the different ways you can try to make an impact with your life, whether it's parenthood or being rich and famous and changing the world with some incredible technology, business innovation, creative, what have you. But we're going to go into like what are the ways that you can make the greatest impact with your life, and like how does that impact your life experience too. So Shireen, since this was your idea, why don't you take it away?
Yeah. Well, thank you, Mr. Garrett. Yeah, it's kind of an interesting one when you think about the concepts of doing versus being. Like, I feel like there's just different energies. Some people you can just tell they're like doers, it's just like bam, 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 go, 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 you know. And some people are more in the be energy, like they're actually just kind of more chill and they just kind of like want to be with people, and they actually maybe wouldn't be as productive as the doers. And I don't really think, I think I recall watching a YouTube video from Eckhart Tolle on this. So this is something that's probably been in my brain for like a while, just having thought about this. But I don't know, I was having a conversation with a friend about you should want to be more than just a parent. Like you should want to have a more dynamic life. And in my mind, I was thinking like, does that ultimately really matter? While I understand the sentiment and I am a person who has lots of ambitions and all kinds of stuff, I'm like, I don't really know what's the absolute truth. Like what does actually matter? Because someone could be sitting in a Buddhist temple emanating love and be far more productive than the person who's like, checking off their to-do list and running around busy, busy, busy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so sometimes I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't think it's just that the doing energy is necessarily more. Like, what if the being energy is far more in the grander scheme of things? So I would love to hear your thoughts, Mr. Garrett.
Yeah, well, I mean, it cuts right to your fundamental belief about what reality is. Are you a materialist? And if you're a materialist, you're going to say, well, the doing matters because you're moving matter. Whereas if you're sort of a non-materialist, what would you call those? A conscious, someone who's, hey, by the way, comment, hit little like buttons, do things like that. Let the Facebook and YouTube algorithm know that we're alive here and that this show is worth watching because we're getting slammed by the algorithm. I don't know why, but if you can just like make a little heart or make a little smiley face or whatever, the thumbs up button, I don't know. Any of those things might help. I don't know, shake the algorithm and get the show out to the other people who subscribe to these channels. It's the weirdest thing that they don't. Okay, anyway, back to what we were saying. Okay, so that's a materialist approach. That's a materialist approach right there to trying to make something happen. Not just having a good vibe and hoping that the algorithm treats us well. It's like, no, let's do stuff to make the algorithm, change the world or change, our impact on the world. So right there, I'm exhibiting the materialist approach to making an impact. Now, the non-materialist approach would be saying, well, not material, but consciousness is fundamental. And therefore, if you are the monk sitting in a monastery away from everybody, emanating pure love, that you are having a huge anchoring impact of love on this planet. And I like to believe that. I think that's kind of where my heart and soul are in terms of beliefs. Like I would believe that. Now, is there any reason to believe that? Well, I mean, there's been all kinds of studies on the power of prayer and the power of positive thinking, and I think there's good reason to believe it. But it's a very different approach. It's like you just have to ask yourself fundamentally, what do you think is real? Is matter more real than mind, or is mind more real than matter? And based on that answer, you'll have your answer to how you can make the greatest impact. But even that might not be it, because if you're full of love and spirit and enthusiasm, even if you're a materialist, you're probably going to have a much greater impact on the world than if you're getting really worried about how that algorithm's treating you. Or how the material world is treating you, or what have you achieved?
What about, I mean, because then I think about like Steve Jobs, and I'm like, oh my gosh, he made such a huge impact. Like he's literally changed the way we communicate, the way we interact, the way we function in society. And yet part of me is like, does it make it better though? Like, certainly he made an impact. I don't know. I don't know in the algorithm of like the universe if you calculated that impact for positive or negative and how it's actually affecting people. I don't know what the truth is. I'm so
Yeah.
sorry. I get so far out. What?
Well, you know, and a closer example is Elon Musk. I mean, he is the hero of today. Dude is making such a fucking ginormous impact on our physical reality. Everything from fixing our dependency on fossil fuels to getting us a human backup on Mars to, you know, you know, solar roofs to some sort of crazy mole tubular travel system under the ground, which someday we'll probably all be traveling in these tubes built by the Boring Company, which Elon Musk has founded. So it's like, okay, so he's doing all this crazy shit, and that makes you think, well, Jesus, I better get my shit together. So I think there's got to be, here's a way to look at it. The energy, your vibe, your true actual, like, how much love do you have in you? How much love and sort of, how to say, let's call it just love and light, and then how much love and light is actually in you. That's where your mind is at. Where's your mind coming from? And then what's your impact on the physical world? I think your impact on the physical world is a reflection of that. So I'd venture to say, like, Elon Musk has some fucking dynamite heart, mind, and soul situation. Yeah. Like, he is, I don't know. Like, I don't know if it's just a momentum thing, but it's like, dude is so lined up. He is so lined up. And I think that's like playing a video game. If you play a video game and you're not really paying attention and you're kind of depressed and you're just not on point, that you're not going to do well in the game. So even if this world is a video game, it's like, it is feedback to you about how well are you showing up, how you know, how lined up is your mind and your heart and soul with, you know, true grace.
I like that, actually, because then it's not either or. It's not like you can only be love up in the mountains away from everyone, or you can be busy and productive, but maybe you're unconscious while doing it. But it's like, if there's a way you could find that super, super sweet spot and be able to be love while making whatever impact it is that you're meant to make, or caring enough to engage and make a difference. You know, because I think about like Martin Luther King, like, what if he was just like, yeah, man, I'm just gonna be love. Like, I'm not gonna take a stand. That's a lot. Like, let me just, like, I just want to love. You know, like, I'm like, that would have been fortunate, because he made a lot of positive progress with the way he took a stand. So there has to be some physical element that actually does matter. I guess it's just a matter of, maybe for everyone it's different. Like, you find your own happy medium.
Well, and love is courage. Like, love is what gives you courage. So, you know, Martin Luther King saying, yeah, you know, I'm just that, like, so there's the temptation when you're called to the adventure, when you're called to a heroic expression of your true self, there's a temptation to go, oh no, that's going to really throw me off my my happy place, right? And then, so Martin Luther King could have refused the call, and he could have done things that made him and his family feel safer. And he might have avoided some bomb threats, or some actual bombs, or house burnings, or things of that sort that were like genuine, or an assassination. Like, he might have avoided being assassinated.
Right.
You know? So it's like, but I think if you're filled with love, then there's a kind of devotion in you that just can't sit on the couch and hide. Like, that needs to put yourself out there where you belong, or where you can do the most good. And so let's get back to your question about, like, being a mom.
Okay.
You know, like,
yeah, because this whole conversation stemmed from my friend was saying women should want to be more than a mom.
Yeah.
That's where the whole thing came from. And I was like, Should they though? I mean, I do. I want to do what we're doing right now. For personally, I have that desire. And yeah, I wouldn't necessarily project that onto every mom on the planet. I mean, I think some moms are just like their purpose is to caretake and love and nurture other lives. So there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Well, it's okay. Let's take a really big view of this.
Okay.
We are these creatures stuck on a remote planet in the unfashionable western spiral of the Milky Way. Like, we're kind of like off in the boondocks of the Milky Way, sitting on this tiny dot, and somehow like our little creatures' bodies are part of this evolutionary process that life is. And what does life really want from us? Like, what are we as little creatures? And what we are is like, we're here to perpetuate life and to amplify life. I mean, if that's our mission, if there was a mission given to these little creatures stuck on the green and blue dot off in the corner of the sky, like, what's the mission? The mission is like, life is like, okay, make more of yourselves and make better versions of yourselves and get smarter and get more capable. And so your role, like your greatest impact on that level, very much is like, how do you help life and humanity do better? And some, I think we're just going to talk about motherhood now. I think some women are incredibly intelligent, task-oriented, inspirational, artistic, something out like stuff that you like. Your gift is going out and doing stuff in the world, right?
Yeah.
And by sharing your gifts with the world, you're making the world a better place because you are so well equipped to transform society or people's beliefs or make impacts on large numbers of people, right? Now, imagine this. You have a woman who's very much like that, and she decides, no, the right thing to do is to spend all my time and energy on kids, on being a mother, right?
Yeah.
Now, then that woman might very well be taking her gift away from humanity and then putting it all on these kids. And those kids may not have nearly the gifts that she has. And those kids might just sort of be, meh, they didn't really do much for the world, right? And so she's taken all this like light and ability that she could have given the world, and she's given it to, a couple deadbeat kids who don't turn into much, right? And so I feel like that's a waste. Now, the flip side could be a woman who is an incredibly nurturing soul and spirit that loves just being there for her kids all the time. Like, some women cannot take being with an infant for, 20 hours a day without losing their minds. And then there are other women who can. So those women who can spend that kind of time being with their children and nurturing them, they might be, through their children, they might raise children who then go out into the world and make other kinds of impacts. So it's like those children that were raised with so much love and attention might go out and be such brilliant Elon Musk type people in the world that makes the greater impact. So really it's like a balance of, are you sort of what are you inspired to do? What makes you come alive? What is your greatest gift? I don't think there's no prerequisite. It's like there's no right answer. The only right answer is for you. And if you put all your heart and soul into raising your children, you're probably going to raise amazing children, and those children will go out into the world and make our little dot in the galaxy a better place and push humanity forward and help humanity accomplish what humanity needs to do to make a great impact in the world. So your impact is through your children. Whereas if you're a woman who has a tremendous need and ability to make direct impact on society, it's like, don't hide that, because there's no saying that your kids are gonna necessarily be able to follow in your footsteps. They might decide that their calling in life is smoking dope and playing video games, and you might not be able to stop them, and it might drive you crazy watching them do that if you think that they're your legacy. So I think there is really a balance. You have to know yourself, know your kids, and know where you're most alive. And if you're a woman who feels most alive being out in the world and making an impact in society and on culture and with other people, that's a great example for your children. Like your children will see you do that, and they will see you, you know, and they will feel that you feel more alive, and they will feel that you don't resent them because you're not like locked up and stuck with them. So like that's where you can make your greatest impact. Whereas if you feel like you just love being with your kids and all you want to do is like go play house with them and, you know, go for walks with them and go to the park with them, and like you're just so, and really think of, like, if you're answering that way, really ask yourself, like, are you 100% present with them, or are you on your phone? Like, if you are really present with your kids and you just love baking with your kids or making things with them, and you're just like this, what's her name, Mary Poppins type person that's just like so into your kids, like that is a huge gift. Definitely go that way. But if you're phoning it in with your kids, then maybe there is some, you know, spare cycles in you to make a greater impact on a larger, you know, societal level. And when I say larger, I take that back. I mean, I think both can make great impacts.
And I think you make a good point of like, it's not like you're really ever going to know if your kid's going to turn out to be a deadbeat until it happens, like when they're 25 or 35 and still not doing well in life. You know what I mean? Like, so I feel like you make a good point with, you kind of have to tune into yourself. Like you said, like what makes you feel alive? Because I just know for me, I actually become very depressed. Like I start to implode if I don't have the things that make me feel alive and like get me expressed and make me feel engaged in the world. And I really actually start to become a much worse mother. I'm not nearly as loving. I'm not nearly as alive. I'm not having fun when I'm with them. I'm more just, like you said, like kind of resentful about the fact that I'm not able to have the freedoms I want to do the work I want. So I think for everyone listening or watching, it's like, you really do have to tune into yourself around your being versus doing energy, and like what really lights you up or what really resonates with your soul. Because everyone has their own sort of soul blueprint and they're different, you know. What works for me might not work for you, Garrett, and you know, all the way around.
Yeah, and I think it's, you know, like I keep getting more and more that our bottom line is, as human beings, is to contribute to greater connection in the world, more order, beauty in the world, more sort of love, order, beauty, truth, connection. Like these are the sort of things ultimately that we're working for. And so whatever way you can contribute the most to that kind of thing, more life, like more beautiful, evolved life. It's like we are part of this progression of evolution on our planet that started at like microbial levels, and now we're up to human levels, and someday we'll be on superhuman or beyond human levels. And our job is just to push the needle forward a little bit, to, you know, bring more grace, more beauty, beautiful expression of life into this world. So I would argue that a giraffe is more beautiful than an amoeba, you know, like that's, there's an evolution there, and I would much more want to save the giraffe's life than the amoeba's life. And the reason is because a giraffe is like so much more complex and beautiful and evolved. And the same goes to, I would save a human over a giraffe most likely, unless a giraffe was endangered, or the human was evil. I mean, there is like then you start to get into these weird dichotomies. But the point is that there is this progression that we're at the very pinnacle of evolution of life on this planet, and life wants to continue evolving to greater and greater expressions of beauty and complexity and order. And so the real answer to your question in terms of making an impact is like, how do you contribute to greater beauty, complexity, and order in the world? And that might be creating, like really being super mom, or that might be don't worry about being super mom, like your kids are perfectly happy where they are. You know, my mother just told me this, and I hope I'm not spilling anyone's potatoes here, but my brother and his wife had a really hard time putting their newborn baby into daycare. So my brother's wife had a job that like, nope, you don't get more than 6 weeks, you know, and I think that's really harsh and something that's deeply wrong with our American society right now, is how little time mothers are given to I don't know, nurture that bond with their newborn baby and get to a point
Yeah.
where they really do feel ready to let a stranger start taking care of that child so that they can continue with their job without losing their job. But nonetheless, she had to do that, and it was very difficult for her and very difficult for my brother to experience this happening. But my mother was telling me that this little boy that they have, this little baby boy, was like totally happy. Like he was totally fine with being in this, like they were traumatized that they had to drop him off at this daycare.
Aw.
And the daycare is taking pictures of this kid because he's so damn happy. They're taking pictures and putting him on their website or something because like,
Yeah.
here's a perfectly happy 6-week-old, like just overjoyed to be in our little daycare facility. So,
Yeah.
you know, I think you need to know yourself, but you also need to know your children. And that child's soul might be like, no, dude, I love daycare. Like, I love, you know, being with people. I'm trusting the universe. I'm not traumatized by, you know, being separated from mom for a little while. Like, some kids would be deeply traumatized, and other kids are like, yay, you know, where's the party? Like, so I
Yeah.
think that's, you know, that's another piece to the puzzle, is just really being aware of how your life is impacting the lives of others. And when you see like, oh man, like my child is traumatized by me dropping them off at this daycare, well, maybe pay attention to that. Maybe they're not in the right daycare, or maybe this isn't the right move for you, or maybe a nanny that you've got them set up with just isn't working out. It's like, you pay attention to that. But then when they're like super happy, you can also take that as like, hey, go do what you need to do because I'm happy doing what I need to do. We don't need to be all
Yeah.
codependent here, trying to make each other feel good about, you know, it's like, so there is so much breadth and variety of what your life is, and your life is a mystery. Your life is
Yeah.
a total mystery that you get to solve, and no one else can solve it for you. It's like that's what living is. So
That's kind of fun. I like that.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so for those of you listening, feel free to comment us thoughts, questions, comments, anything about this discussion, because I'm sure everything we're saying right now is striking everyone very differently, since everyone here has their own mystery to solve. So, yeah, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, so it's like, you know, what is the riddle to your life? What is the thing that you're here to do? And you'll know what that is because you feel more alive when you're doing it. And that aliveness is what the essence of life is. So if you, it's like really just think of like, we are part of this evolutionary spectrum. We are these creatures that can live or die at any moment. And the more you live, the more life you channel, the greater contribution you're making to the overarching. It's like, what is life? Like, what if life is just one big being, like that is breaking into this physical universe? So if you're a materialist, your idea is that like all the atoms and molecules and things like that are the most real. But if you're a non-materialist, like I am, and I think Shireen sort of said she felt this way, then you're probably like, I would say you're a lifeist. It's like, what is life? Because life is not material. Life expresses itself through various aspects of material, whether it's water, the hydrogen bonds in water, which can get into these wiggly quantum states, and like that's weird and interesting. And so life can amplify some weird dynamics in water through the quantum states and hydrogen bonds in water. Okay, but then you've got DNA, which is like, you know, tons and tons of hydrogen bonds that all can be sort of manipulated by this life force, the whatever this is, and life takes DNA and turns it into all of these amazing things that we experience as expressions of life, whether it's a butterfly or a giraffe or an amoeba. And you know, here we are at the pinnacle of this sort of genetic expression or DNA expression of what life is, but now we're amplifying ideas. You know, it's like, so like our brains have come to this level where something wiggly happens on a quantum level in our brains that lets us have these amazing expressions of creativity and ideas and consciousness. And, you know, we're now these great amplifiers, greater amplifiers than DNA, of this sort of creative life force that seems to be this giant being that encapsulates all living activity on this planet. And you're an expression of that. So how is your expression of life most beautiful, most true, most powerful, make the greatest impact. And I'd venture to say the way you know when you're on course is that you feel more alive and you feel more full of love. And the feeling of love, I believe, is the feeling of what life feels like. So that's why we fall in love with people, is because we become so aware of the beauty of life in them, the beauty of their life and their consciousness, that it amplifies that life and that consciousness in us. And that feeling, that amplification of life within ourselves, feels like love. So life very literally feels like love. That is the feeling of life, is joy, love, and aliveness. And so when you're experiencing those feelings, that is a signal to you that you're on course. This is what your life force is all about, because your life force is now expanding because you feel more alive, you feel more in love, you feel more joy, you feel more enthusiasm. And enthusiasm means to be filled with spirit. And what is spirit? Spirit is consciousness, basically. Spirit is that heart soul consciousness that infuses all of the higher evolved life forms of our planet. Have this weird thing called consciousness that science can't explain, that materialists can't explain, but that we all know is real and that we all feel as non-materialists. And I would even venture to say most materialists on some level have to admit, yes, there's this experience of consciousness that can't be denied, but that science has no explanation for. Well, I deeply believe that consciousness is just means that the life force in you has been amplified to such a sophisticated level that you can sort of self-experience or experience what life is experiencing. I don't know. I'm going to drop it there. Take it away, Shireen.
No, I think that's really good. I mean, I feel like I would love for everyone to comment in if you are more of a lifeist or a materialist. Are those the two options, Garrett? Lifeist?
Yeah, I don't know what to call this second option. I know materialist is the first option. I'll have to look it up. Because the word's not coming to me. But there's a dichotomy there. It's a known scientific dichotomy. And when I say scientific, I mean that most of science is based on a materialistic or a materialist point of view, because that's what's easy to measure. But then there's this whole other side of human cognition, human awareness, human intelligence that is around philosophy, is around consciousness, is around art, is around these ineffable qualities that are beyond materialism. And if you don't embrace those, it becomes a very degraded sort of life perspective, because you are no longer, somebody said, and I think it's very interesting, that even atheists who are devoted to this kind of work of being more alive, of contributing, of bringing order to the world, all of that, that they in essence by honoring the logos, and that's what this is. The logos is the thing that brings order to chaos. Okay, so the logos could be another way of saying life. That when you honor the logos, when you are bringing more life to the world, when you're bringing more creativity, order, innovation, complexity, beauty, truth, love to the world, when you honor the logos, which is sort of the source of that, then that in essence expresses that you are devoted to something higher than yourself. Yeah. And so that devotion of something higher to yourself, then even if you call yourself atheist, that devotion is a religious quality. And when I say religious, I mean devotion. So, when you say you work out religiously, you work out devotedly. It doesn't mean you're worshiping the weights or the running, but you are devoted to it. So it's like that, I think, is that's the true religion. That's the true spirituality, is being devoted to the logos, being devoted to the life force, being devoted to creating more beauty, truth, and love in the world. And if you're doing that, it doesn't matter whether you ascribe it to a bearded man in the sky or you say that there's no such thing as God, because
Yeah.
that devotion to the beauty, truth, and love that life wants to express in this world is the greatest devotion.
Oh, damn. Joke's on you, atheist. Just kidding.
But I think that the jokes is also on the fundamentalist religious nut who blows shit up. Like you're working against the logos when you blow shit up. You know, when you create destruction, judgment, condemnation, isolation, disconnection, genocide, any of those things in the name of some fictitious god, God that, was written about somewhere, when you're beheading people because, Allah told you to, or you're, burning neighborhoods of, minorities, or shutting them down at the border and separating, parents and children, and creating all sorts of bedlam and chaos and hurt and disconnection. It's like, you're not working for the Word. Like, the Word is the initial creation of God, and the Word is the Logos, and the Logos is very clearly bringing order to the chaos. So if you're bringing chaos to the order, you're working against God. You are deceived. And so, just as much as an atheist might be doing the work of God, the religious fundamentalist may be doing the work of the devil under the auspices of some contrived belief around God. I think the litmus test for, do you really believe in God, or do you really believe in the true God or truth, is like, are you bringing more order to the world? And are you devoted to that? Are you bringing more beauty, truth, and love into the world? And if you're not doing anybody's work but the devil's.
Very interesting, Garrett. So interesting. Michelle Reed says, bullshit, XX. I'd love to know what you think is bullshit, Michelle.
Yeah,
Give us
bring it, Michelle. I love a good debate. So it makes me feel more alive when there's somebody to tangle with, and to make our ideas more lucid and true and expressive of the real truth. So Michelle, hit us with it. I'd love to hear it.
Totally. And also, sorry for cussing in front of your sweet second child, Amelia. And hi, Amelia. I hope you can hear us.
Okay.
Good to see you.
So I missed that comment, but okay.
Well, Michelle has a son named Callum, and Callum, he was on watching one time, and we said hi to him, and she was very excited about it. So this time she jumped on and said, my second child, Amelia, is here, so say hi to her this time. And then she called BS. So we'll get the scoop on what's BS.
Oh, I see. Well, I mean, hey, if whatever, this show is PG-13 at least.
Yeah, exactly.
At least.
Yeah, exactly. Brittany Nicole says, free will. We are godly beings. In my opinion, we can create, we can destroy, we can evolve, and we can influence.
Yeah. We need to speak Remas into the world, is what Verna is saying, and I don't know what that means at all. So please explicate. Let us know. So back to making an impact. This is the head trip that we're all under, especially in this sort of Instagram this Instagram driven world we're finding ourselves in. And this Instagram thing is probably just a blip in the radar, but what I am seeing that I find appalling on Instagram is this very shallow or superficial expression of people trying to live their best life. And and by living their best life, it seems to be indulging in all sorts of materialistic luxuries. And I don't have a problem. I don't think I have a deep problem with materialistic luxuries, though I'm not very interested in them. It's just not where I come from. So I've always found luxury to any greater extent than kind of what I'm used to or what I need to be unnecessary. Like, so I'm not excited about going to Greece on some, big trip, or, swimming in some perfect swimming, infinity pool or having some, I don't know, perfect exotic beach vacation. Like I would be bored most of the time doing. I've been on those enough times. It's like I'm bored by that. It doesn't feel meaningful to me. It doesn't make me feel more alive. It makes me feel like I'm avoiding Bora Bora. There we go. Like, yeah. So it's like, would I enjoy going to Bora Bora? I would probably enjoy the enthusiasm that my wife and kids had getting to Bora Bora, because I know like they're still under the delusion that this stuff is great. Okay, so it's like they would be so enthusiastic and excited about it. I'd be like, oh, this is fantastic to see them so happy to be, you know, in a hotel room with a glass floor looking at sharks under the water, whatever the hell it is they have at Bora Bora. I fundamentally don't give a fuck. Like that stuff doesn't make me feel more alive. I find it, and part of it is because I grew up experiencing enough of that sort of fancy materialism that I realized it's so empty. It's so shallow. There's like the bottom to that materialism is as close as the bottom to that swimming pool. It doesn't go deep. It doesn't fulfill you. It doesn't make you happy. And in fact, that sort of arid, I don't know how to say it, but like you walk into a hotel room, it's not a home. It's a corporate structure that is just there to sort of separate you from your money and give you the impression of you're having a fancy good time. But I'll tell you, the most beautiful times I've had are in a field somewhere under the stars, are with my children playing with bunnies in the backyard, are in a fit of ecstatic grace creating something beautiful in my studio that turns into a viral video, are having like a real genuine encounter with someone at the bar down the street, you know, or having a wild crazy time out with some friends or whatever it is. It's like, but it's not expensive and it's not fancy and it's not something that photos well on Instagram. And I'm deeply concerned with this sort of, it seems like there's this groundswell of frantic desire for fancy cars, fancy vacations, perfect butts, perfect pictures of you at the sunset on the perfect beach, drinking the perfect drink. Let me take a picture of this perfect food before I eat it. It's like, what the flying fuck? I'm sorry, but like this shit is just shit. It's just like, it's a little bit of organized matter that doesn't matter, because like the heart and soul of like the stuff you're gonna be like, Jesus Christ, like if on your deathbed your life flashes before your eyes and you have to go look at all those fucking Instagram pictures that you were like forcing a pose for, it's like, is that living? Is that life? Because I feel like there's something so much deeper and more exquisite that you can be experiencing in your life that's really hard to take a picture of. And that's the problem. I think that's the issue, is like Instagram rewards good photography and good pictures, but Jesus, we all have this like Pavlovian response to the picture of the pretty girl in the tight bikini with the great ass in the perfect pool or on the perfect beach with the perfect sunlight and the perfect drink or the perfect food. And it's like, that's what we all sort of on a Pavlovian level respond to, or a cellular level or whatever you want to call it. But it's like, is that really what brings fulfillment in life? Because everybody's heard this. Every celebrity, person who's gone from rags to riches will say, that stuff doesn't make you happy, doesn't make you feel more fulfilled. Listen to Jim Carrey sometime, like in one of his speeches, all he does is talk about like how he got all of that stuff and he just felt incredibly empty still at the end of it. And that is like, how do we turn Instagram, this medium that we're all admittedly addicted to on some level, how do we turn it into something that expresses a deeper nature of our souls, the deeper, more transcendent, more amazing life experiences that we have access to as human beings?
That is an amazing question. And like my thought immediately went to like, well, I guess you could just write a heartfelt post alongside the picture. But I feel like, I mean, I'm on Instagram a lot, you know, just looking at things and whatever. And I think we talked on the last live stream about how like it was depressing me to be on Instagram too much. So I have the same feeling about that version of social media, and honestly all of social media, that you're sort of like the sentiment you're expressing right now. I have the same kind of like concerns and sort of repulsions and all that. And I feel like when I read some deep heartfelt thing on Instagram, like that accompanies a picture of a chick in a bikini, about how it means so much to her to like be able to post this because she used to be assaulted by her ex-husband and she was afraid for so long. It's like so weird because there's something really deep and beautiful about it, and yet because of the type of medium Instagram is and because of my own very short attention span, I'm like, oh yeah, another deep story on Instagram anyway, and like I move on to the next pretty picture that like makes my eyes light up. And it's weird. Like, that's weird that someone would be like pouring their heart and soul out on Instagram, and I'm like, yeah, anyway, cool story, bro, and I move on to the next shallow picture. Like, I feel like I'm becoming a more shallow version as a result of types of this. Is why it's so weird. It's like, is this type of connection really disconnecting us? This is kind of brings me back to like what we're originally talking about, like doing versus being. Like, hypothetically, you could say whoever created social media did the world a great service, but it's like, but did they though? Like, sometimes I'm like, I'm really not sure, because certainly there's things about it that are great, and I don't know. Like, I literally just last week went away on an international trip to France for a wedding with my family, and I didn't really pick up my phone much at all, and I was like so much more chill and happy. I was like, oh yeah, this is great. Like, I'm not thinking about being a photographer right now so that everybody knows that I'm living my best life. I'm just living my life. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just being with my kids and with my family, with my husband, and having a fight with my husband on the street in front of his family, being embarrassed about it, but then having like the time and space to like make up and really talk it out and like make out and decide that we're super crazy about each other, and that was a stupid idiot move we both pulled earlier, and that we want to make it right. And I don't know, I'm just like, I think that's life. Not like, hold on, let me take a picture of this moment, babe, so that everybody knows we're like a happily married couple. It's like so weird, this whole obsession with displaying your life versus living your life, you know?
Yeah. And you made me realize is that Instagram is life porn.
Oh.
That's what it is. It's porn. It's fucking porn. That's what it is. That's why like we keep scrolling to the pictures. It's like, you know, it's these pictures that are evolved. Like, Instagram has evolved into a way of compelling people to take those perfect pictures that will grab other people's attention. So you know, now there's all these jokes on sort of the Barstool Sports type of Instagrams where they're showing all these college girls like going way out of their way to get that, to make their friends help them take the perfect selfie. And now they have like guys joking about it where like the guy's giving himself a wedgie and posing in a weird way on the beach so that he looks like the girl's doing the same thing. But it's all like, you know, just ragging on this culture of just like, I need that perfect selfie. And why do you need that perfect selfie? Because that's what porn is. Porn is basically, you know, the difference between art and porn is art is an expression of the heart and soul, and porn is this thing that's designed to manipulate you. So, fucking A. So one second here.
I'm like, some beeping happened.
Yeah.
And then Garrett started cussing.
Yeah. Fuck it. Okay, it's over. It doesn't matter. I forgot to plug something in. Anyway, so that's what Instagram is Instagram is like everybody getting into the porn game, and you don't need to be naked or having sex or doing whatever to be in porn. Like, you can do food porn, take a picture of your perfect meal. You can do beach porn, you can do workout porn, but it's all like the stuff that succeeds is the porn because it's just like it visually like gets you to go, whoa. And it's as weird, we just don't realize it yet, but it's as weird as like you're making love to your spouse and you're like, oh, hold on, wait a second here, let's get this. Oh, you look so hot right now, let's get this while I'm fucking your brains out. It's like
Garrett, hold on, let me selfie it as live stream. Hold on.
This is so good. Yeah, we should live stream this. Let's just get this on our story. We're so in love right now, we're having such a magical connection right now, let's get this. But it's like that's what this has become, and it's also become this total distraction from actually if you are putting a video of yourself living your best life on Instagram, you're not living your best life at that moment. Like that moment that you're taking that photo or taking that video to like say that you're living your best life, you're obviously not. So it's like that there's this weird,
you're like wasting your time trying to tell people that you're living your best life. Like it's like that thing, like if a tree falls in the forest but no one heard it, did it really fall? I feel like that's really the question about social media. It's like, you know, if you're living your life and you're not sharing it constantly, but you're so deeply soul fulfilled and have amazing connections that are making a huge impact in your family, in your community, the world at a larger scale, does it matter if you take a picture so everyone knows? I mean, I guess in the world of like working and trying to create more opportunities for yourself, it's sort of like a marketing, you know, like you can, that's a form of marketing. But I don't know. I just feel like once things get to the point where it's more about marketing it, it's like, are you promoting it or are you living it? It is the doing versus being energy. It just like creeps me out. It just creeps me out, man. I don't know, man. I think to some degree, and this might be a limiting belief of my own, you guys can like feel free to like set me straight here, but I feel like to some degree, because I'm more interested in feeling good and feeling free and actually being in the moment and like living versus like making money or achieving or like getting somewhere or looking a certain way, I feel like I might not make as much money, you know, like I might not be as monetarily successful because in truth, I'm not focused on those things. Those things don't fulfill my soul. So like I'm focused on, let's say, art or having a positive message or making a positive impact. And it's like, if I was focused on Instagram marketing, I might be more successful. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I just don't know.
I think you're right. You're absolutely right. That's the thing is that you won't be as materially successful if you don't invest heavily in materialism. I have a voice coach who was also like Steven Tyler's voice coach and a bunch of like big name rock stars. And, you know, one time he was telling me, and this was years ago, he's like, you know, you're never going to make it as, you know, as a vocal artist or whatever. And I was like, oh, okay, well, you know, it's nice. It's like, I get it. My singing isn't that great. He's like, no, your singing is fucking phenomenal. It's great. He's like, but you're too happy. You're not going to make the kinds of sacrifices I see these guys make. Like, they will not spend any time with their family. They will, like, if there's an opportunity for more attention from the crowd or from the media or whatever, they will sacrifice everything to get that. And they and they're not happy. Like, there's a deep unhappiness and deep dissatisfaction in them that drives them to reach this pinnacle of hyper competitive, like, you know, these guys who are at the top of fame and fortune will sacrifice everything to have it.
Yeah.
Like, that is the most important thing to them, is winning that crown jewel of fame and fortune. And they will not only sacrifice everything to get it, they will continue to sacrifice everything to keep it. And that is the thing that most sane people won't do. Like, there's all of us have our limits, and generally the people that you see at the very, very pinnacle of any industry or any profession or any art form are usually there because they were willing to do anything to be there. And it wasn't anymore about just they're a wonderful artist. Like, so say you take somebody who's, you know, a highly celebrated artist, it's probably not that they're the greatest artist in the world, that they're at that level. It's more likely that they're a really great artist who also is so fucking ambitious that they would sacrifice anything and everything to get that sort of pinnacle #1 spot in the world and keep it. And so that then becomes like, you know, if you look at the top earners, you know, there's a lot of talk these days about not income inequality, but like how women aren't paid as much as men in general. Well, one of the fundamental reasons behind that is because there is this very small group of sort of psychotically ambitious men who are willing to sacrifice everything to work 20-hour days to be the captains of industry. And like, that's all that fucking matters to them, is winning and getting more. And most women are a little bit too, I would say, how do you even say it? They're so far along on the sort of psychotic achievement-oriented spectrum that there are virtually no women that go that far.
That
you know?
will rival them. Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's just like, you know, every, you know, there's a spectrum of how achievement-oriented or how materialistic-oriented or how whatever we're talking about here. And men and women are, you know, there's sort of two, what do you call that? Like what are those things called? It looks like that. It's a graph that looks like that. That's bell curve, right?
Okay.
So the thing about bell curves is like men and women are like on these bell curves, and men are just, you know, a little bit further. Their bell curve just goes a little bit further this way. Well, the thing about that is going a little bit further this way, that long tail all the way at the end of it means that there's like some tiny percent of men that are way beyond anyone else in the world in terms of like their drive to achieve. And those men make more money than anybody, everyone combined. I mean, that's we're looking at income inequality, and like that you see that there's, you know, there's a handful of people in this world that just have more than everybody combined. And that's, you know, to the victor goes the spoils. But what do they have? Like, what's their existence like? Like, what is their life like? Would you want to live that existence? Would you want to be in the office, you know, looking at spreadsheets and counting your money for the rest of your fucking life? Like 20 hours a day. Definitely. And when you go on vacation, you're miserable because you can't even enjoy shit because all you really want to do is get back to winning.
Yeah. Yeah. So one of our comments I want to read to you, actually, because that was a super juicy point. I can't see the name anymore because it's actually already scrolled up. But she was saying that one of her and her friends were talking about our social media topic. And she said that her friend's been off media like this for the last 6 weeks and realized how many friends she hadn't actually connected with, that she had just liked their posts but hadn't really checked in with them. So one example was that her friend was due to have a baby, and instead of just liking her "I had a baby" post, she like actually called her to see if she had the baby, and then they really actually connected in real life with a conversation with the voice.
Yeah.
So sorry, that was a derail from where you were going right now.
No, that's right. No, I mean that's exactly right on. I mean the connection's the important piece. Is like we have this fraudulent kind of connection, which is just like, I mean, it's porn. It's porn. Like, what is porn? Porn is a lie. It is a manufactured lie designed to trigger certain feelings in you. And that's why, like, and when I say porn, I'm talking about this more generalized internet version of the word, or Reddit version of porn, where it's like these things called earth porn. And that's just pictures of like majestic landscapes and skies and things like that. And now there's food porn, and that's just pictures of like that juicy hamburger that's like looks so good you could never see that in real life, and that's so well lit. And you know, another version of food porn is like that cereal, like they're marketing their cereal, and the cereal just looks so good in that creamy milk, but the reality is that milk in that picture is glue. It's not milk. It's like they're using Elmer's glue because that looks better in the picture, and that's what porn is. It's not real. It just looks better in the picture. And now we have all sort of become part of this monstrosity, which is creating porn for each other. And the porn is like, look how great my life is. And you wouldn't, no, you know, this is the thing I was thinking earlier, and I don't know whether it would work or maybe it would, I don't know. But you were talking about how you were, you know, fighting in the street with your husband in front of the family. Like, that would be a fucking great time to take out the camera. Do, you know, like, let's get this on our story. And like, and not in a vindictive way, not like, I'm going to get you on our story while you're looking like such an asshole. It's like, I'm going to get myself looking like an asshole on our story. It's like, God, I would love to see a movement where Instagram becomes flooded with people just being fucking real, you know? Look how shitty my life is right now, you know? It's like...
Oh my gosh, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes, honestly, I think this is why I am repulsed by social media. Like, and I think this is why I was getting depressed being on Instagram too much, is because it's so, I'm so great, look at me, everything's perfect. And there are moments in my life where I'm actually like very low. I don't feel happy. I'm very, very low at certain times. I'm very tired. I'm very, you know, drained. I'm very like distraught about certain things. Certainly there's other moments where I'm fulfilled and happy and stoked, and that's all great, but it's fully light and it's fully dark, and I have all those feelings. So when I'm in a dark moment and then I start to dick off on social media, it's like the worst. I'm like, oh, you and your life. Like, I'm just like, like literally like brings out my like inner just like, bleh, and I start to like vomit ugly, gross vibes because I feel ugly and gross in that moment. And then I'm looking at someone go like, oh my God, I'm just like Patty perfect. And like, everything's great. And it's fake. It's not real, like you're saying. So one, it gives me that bad response of like, ew, you and your gross, perfect life. But then two, I'm like, ew, this isn't even real. Like, what am I looking at? Why am I even wasting my brain or my energy or even letting this get on my nerves? Because like you said, like, it's freaking Elmer's glue, dude. It's not milk. It's not delicious, yummy milk. This is a gross, fake, just, I don't even know what the word is, like manufactured version of this person's life that's not even real. It, like, you know, and then I know people who are straight Instagram famous, and I'm like, that's not how you really are. Like, get out of here with that. Like, this is not the truth. Like, I know you and your moods. I've tried to connect with you in real life. You are so disconnected and like super into yourself. Like, so good for you that you are able to be that way on Instagram and it works for you in that medium. But like in life, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan at all. Like, I need to unfollow you on Instagram because I've unfollowed you in my real life. So like, let's just let that be like complete. You know what I mean?
Ooh, you got me thinking here. I mean, I have probably like 16 posts on my Instagram just because I don't know what it is. I'm not a selfie taker. I don't know how to say, even like these live streams. The only reason these live streams get out is because they're live, and like I've been compelled to like do this. Like, okay, we cannot just ignore all the people that we're connected to through Facebook and YouTube. It's like, we can't ignore it. Let's just go. But every time we record shit, like Shireen and I have recorded probably dozens of podcasts and video episodes like this that have never seen the light of day because they're recorded. And I'm just like, so just not into putting shit out there. I don't know what it is. But like, what if I just like fucking selfied like the most boring, tedious, ridiculous, ugly moments of my life? Like, you know, here I am sitting on the shitter, you know. Here I am looking at my fat self, you know, wondering like, I don't know, like it's a possibility, you know. I think it would just be, would it just be gross to people? Like, that's the thing, like, you know.
Well, I think people who get it, you know what I mean, like who get that social media is so like manufactured and ridiculous, would think it's hilarious and probably really get a kick out of it. Maybe they'd even hashtag you and be like, I'm taking a poop too, Garrett.
Yeah. I mean, sure, but like there's a reason we don't show that side of ourselves. There's a reason we don't like shit with the door open. It's because it's just like, it's gross. It's like nobody wants to see that. Like my son is very much like this. Like the only shit he will post on Instagram is like a picture of his own feces in the toilet. Like, it's like, look at this log I just dropped, you know? And I'd be like, oh, dude, like he will send this to me. And I'm like, dude, that's disgusting. I saw enough of that between ages 0 and 3 for you. I'm done for your lifetime. I don't need to see any more of your feces for the rest of my life. But like he will send this on Snapchat to his friends, and his friends will compete. I mean, and it's just like, how gross can you be, right? So I think there is a limit. There's a limit that we're gonna have to find here, and I guess that's the reason we're driven to like take the pretty pictures, and everybody knows what's beautiful. And I guess this is the weird thing about it. Okay, so maybe we can solve this riddle. We were just talking in the beginning of this is like our mission as conscious beings, as part of the life progression, as these living beings that are part of the life that creates more greater beauty, truth, and love, greater complexity and beauty. That is what life force seems to want. We recognize that implicitly, and when we see a beautiful sunset, we see a perfect meal like that's so well orchestrated that someone artfully crafted, or we see like this perfect selfie shot where like it is an expression of the sort of the pinnacle of beauty and perfection that life has created so far. It's like we want to celebrate that. We want to share that. And then when we're living in our lives, like you were describing, you're not feeling so good right now, and you're looking at this, you're like, I'm not living at that pinnacle of what life can create in terms of the outer expression of beauty, truth, and love. So, but is there a greater expression of beauty, truth, and love than
taking a huge shit?
Yeah. Well,
I'm sorry.
Okay. All sarcasm aside, is there a greater expression of beauty, truth, and love than like standing there in your perfect bikini with the sunshine and the infinity pool and the fancy car behind you? It's like, is there something that we can express through ourselves, some sort of artfulness or playfulness or something, some greater expression of connection, or, you know, like even people like doing, you know, like so many people have done like the videos of like going and feeding the homeless. Like every now and then you get an Instagrammer or YouTuber is like, oh, I'm gonna like, you know, be a saint, I'm gonna go give some homeless person a sandwich. It's like, for Christ's sake, like that homeless person maybe is appreciative of that sandwich, but I bet you, like, you know, it's exploitive. It's just not even real. It's just like, it's not, you know, I don't know what to say, but it's like, it seems like homeless people are an easy target, and they're generally homeless because they've got a serious drug problem or something of that sort. And you know, it's nice that you're giving them a sandwich, but it also feels like it's just too, it's what do you call it? It's saint porn. it's right. You know,
I think you said the word when you said exploitive. I feel
it's
like
exploitive. Yeah.
I feel like the second you go from, I want to do something nice out of the kindness of my heart, I don't care if anybody sees, I'm going to do this, to just do it, to bring somebody joy, to make myself maybe even feel like I've made a difference. The second you go from that energy to like, I want people to see me doing this, you're now not doing it from the kindness of your heart. You're now doing it because you want to look good.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Yeah. Like, yeah, you're doing it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
You're doing it to show off. You're doing it for an ego gratification. You're doing it for...
Exactly. Ego versus spirit. Exactly. It's like, am I doing this because I want to look like I'm a great person, or am I doing this because I care?
And that's the weird thing about video is like, it's so fucking hard to capture video of yourself doing something genuinely good. Like genuine. Because as soon as the cameras come out, people become self-conscious. And as soon as you're self-conscious, your ego's in charge. Because that's what self-conscious is like sort of the self-reflection, looking at yourself. That's what the ego is the self. So you're like, oh. So as soon as you're self-conscious, your ego's in charge. And even if you were going to do something for the right reasons, now you know you're being filmed. And it's such a mind fuck.
Yeah, and actually Gary Vee has talked about this, how basically like the world's going to become a nicer place because everyone can be filmed at any moment and shared on social media. And I think that there's something nice about the fact that everyone's going to be more concerned and accountable, as you know, there's going to be checks and balances because somebody's watching, but it's also fake because it's not, people aren't being nice because they really are nice, but I don't know. I mean, so taking like the devil's advocate perspective, maybe that's okay. I mean, sometimes I'm nicer, like because my husband's watching,
Yeah.
like,
We're all actually, I mean, many scientific studies have shown this people, when they know they're being watched, are much more well behaved.
right.
So now the problem is that you're bringing up is that so just like there's materialism and transcendentalism, that's probably the right word for non-materialism, transcendentalism.
There you go.
Hey, how about that? And I happen to live in the town where transcendentalism, if it wasn't born here, it was definitely nurtured here a great deal by Emerson and Thoreau and Alcott. But so transcendentalism is like, okay, there's something transcendent beyond the material that's much more worthy of being focused on. Well, there's now, if you're a materialist, behaviorism is the sort of psychological way you fix shit, is fix your behavior, because that's all that matters, is what you're physically doing in this material world. So that's behaviorism. I fucking hate behaviorism. I do. I cannot, any time I see a behaviorist approach to psychology, it makes me gag. And the reason it makes me gag is because I am a transcendentalist at heart, and I know that what you do is just you can force people to behave perfectly. Look at North Korea and how well they march in step with each other and behave according to the dictates of some behaviorist approach to utopia. It's bullshit. It doesn't work, because inside all of those human beings is this screaming out, this heart screaming out for some kind of genuine expression that you can't have when you're stuck in behaviorism. So if we're all being filmed at all the time, and you are likely to be punished severely for stepping out of line behaviorally, that's going to suck. But there's another side to it. And the other side is when I think of performance artists, particularly people who perform on stage, rock stars and shit like that, who are performing live on stage and the cameras are always on them. There is something that happens after your ego or your self-consciousness gets tired enough to let go. Mm-hmm. Where I've seen performers on stage in front of tens of thousands of people completely surrender their egos and go into an ecstatic state of shamanism.
Yeah.
And channel the Holy Spirit, it's they become this incredible beacon of life force, right? Mm-hmm. But it probably took them a decade of being under the lights, in front of the camera, all that, to find the resolve to surrender their protective ego in front of all of those people, in front of all of those cameras. And so maybe there's an opportunity, if we just get so used to being filmed all the time and always being in somebody's selfie, that it won't matter anymore and we start just being real. That would be great, as long as we're not punishing each other for, but if we're punishing each other, if there is if there's sort of a real viable punishment for ever stepping out of line behaviorally, then everyone's just going to be psychotic. Everyone's just going to be a sociopath, a psychopath. And what that basically means is you're not doing what you really feel is true. You are conforming your behavior to this sort of psychotic projection of yourself.
Yeah. I have a friend who I really need to tell this message, Garrett.
Well, we should have them see it. You could turn them on to the live stream, and then they can watch this fucking message. You don't even have to tell it to them. You can use social media to regurgitate it to them. No, definitely call them up on the phone, have a real conversation. All right, so I think we got to wrap up the show. Are there any comments or things of that sort that that we should address before we go?
Verna did explain to us what Rima is.
Okay.
She said Rima is the voice of the Holy Spirit speaking to us at the present moment. Since we serve the living God, he uses it to speak to us in the present, in which Logos meaning the inspired written word of God, which doesn't sound like what you were saying logos means. So
Well, logos is the word. Like logos,
okay.
so the written word of God is like, I don't know if God actually ever wrote words, except like you could say this universe is the writing of God or something like that, you know, or life is, I don't know. Logos is like the word, like in the beginning was the word, right? Like that's one of the, I don't remember where that's from in the Bible, but that's like the first thing, the word. Okay, what's the word? The word is logos. Logos is like brings order to chaos. If you want to hear more about that, I have a whole video, Life, the Universe, and Everything on YouTube. Google that. You can hear my perspective on logos. We don't have to regurgitate it here. Anyway, I think we've had a good time here. We've got some stuff to chew on. I really would love to find some sort of transcendentalist expression of ourselves on social media. How can we have like a transcendentalist approach, a non-behaviorist approach to social media?
I love this question.
What can we do? And how can we do it to bring more connection and joy and love into the world? And we've got this connection challenge that we're ramping up. And if you'd like to be part of it, you are part of it. And the way to really contribute to it is to find ways of creating social media compatible expressions of connection that can be shared, so that can inspire others to do the same thing. So it's like feeding that homeless person. This is where we're gonna have to get out of the mindfuck. This is the mindfuck that we have to figure out. Like feeding that homeless person the cheeseburger, so you can show yourself and everybody, all your followers on Instagram, that you're a good Samaritan, so you can do good Samaritan porn. Like that sucks. Like I don't think that's it. But like, how can we create expressions of connection, beauty, truth, and love that are Instagram compatible, that are genuine? Like, how do we do that? This is the big riddle. And when we solve this riddle, Instagram goes from being this sort of conduit of the ego to a conduit of love. And I'd love to see that.
I'd love to see that too. Hey, and you know, worst case scenario, even if it is just still a conduit of the ego, I would still rather pour gasoline on the fire of being a good Samaritan and forwarding joy, love, beauty, order, and all that good, delicious stuff versus the other stuff. So, I mean, if we can't escape the mind fuck,
we gotta fuck it wholeheartedly.
Exactly. That's my bag of plan.
All right, and on that note, God bless you all. Have a great week, and we'll be back with you next week. Take care.